welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is entrepreneur and Abraham Hicks fan, Louis D'Souza. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And unfortunately, our good friend Anne-Marie is under the weather. She actually has contracted the COVID illness, which Louis keeps telling us he keeps trying to and hasn't been able to do. But she actually does have it. And so I'm asking all of our listeners and friends to send your highest vibrations of healing to her so she can get past it quickly, get back to living the good life. But in the meantime, Louis has been living the good life. He and his family just spent the last couple of weeks in Austria. And he was just telling me a little bit about it. I mean, from what I saw, Louis, in the pictures, and from what you were just telling me, it sounded like a perfect Christmas holiday. I mean, it was just, everything was perfect about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for people to really understand, but I've been doing this for about 15 years now, every single Christmas going there, because my wife was born in a skiing village in Austria. So, you know, it's a very family affair. We go back. The kids have been sponsored for 3 years of free skiing lessons from the grandparents. And so, you know, Isabel, who's now 12 or 13 years old, is now, you know, skiing quite very, very well by herself.
Good for her.
And Eloise has just gone her, well, second year because COVID knocked out one of the years of her training. And yeah, so it snowed before we got there, as I was saying earlier on, and we had sun the whole time we were there, and that snow was so deep that it managed to remain most of the time. Well, we had we also have every Christmas a little sleigh ride. So this guy comes with these two huge horses and his sleigh, and we get you know, wrapped up in blankets, and we get pulled by horses around the snow, which is, you know, it's really charming. You know, it's something that people don't often get the experience of doing.
Yeah. I've experienced it once. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So then you stop halfway in the middle of nowhere, and you get out and you stretch your legs and you get the schnapps given to you, and you all go, you know, bottoms up. And
they didn't serve us schnapps. They served us hot chocolate, but they're relatively the same thing. So, yeah. That's good.
In Austria, it's very, very much schnapps.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I have to ask, do they actually use it to lead the sleighs? Do they actually use Belgian draft horses in Austria? I mean, is that allowed? I don't know.
I don't even know what a Belgian draft horse is.
Oh, they're like these huge, monstrously large horses, very gentle, very kind, but just monstrously strong, big horses.
It looks very much like that because these guys are huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely massive. But gorgeously, as you say, very tame and passive creatures. But, you know, you really feel the power of these massive beasts.
Oh, they take one step, it's like, whoa, oh, jeez.
Yeah.
You got 20 people in the sleigh, and it moves like it's nothing. I mean, it's crazy.
And then, you know, I wasn't allowed to ski because I haven't had my COVID jab. So I'm not allowed to go in the ski lifts. So I was penalized all over the place. Couldn't go to restaurants, couldn't do a lot of things, which is really quite curtailing. But on the whole, you know, I just really like going out for walks and having some quiet time and doing some meditation in the mountains. And, you know, with all the family being busy doing this activity or that activity, I can just have some real quiet time and do some studying and all the rest of it. And it's just great. You know, it's very, very peaceful. And the water, you know, I'm big into my water, and it's from a stream that's about 200 meters away. So it's like as clear and as pure as you can get it. No filtration, no storage, well, a little bit of storage, I suppose, there's a tank in the house. But that's it. So, you know, you've got this pure air, this crystal clear, snowy, crisp air, which you've got, and then you've got this pure water, and you've got the ability to go out and walk endlessly all over the place. You know, it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's a lot of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun, and it does sound very relaxing. I've always enjoyed any kind of outdoor, just pure relaxation type activities that are almost not even activities that count as activities because they're so low key. But I love it because when you can be in those places like you were in, where you're describing this, crystal clear air and clear water and so forth, it's it's magical. That's the best
Mm.
word I can think of to describe it. When you have an environment like that you're in, it just feels magical. Everything just sparkles.
The great thing is you can take your camera, turn it in any direction, and you get an amazing shot. You don't have to be a professional cameraman at all. You just wing it
Right?
anywhere and just press the button, and you've got this gorgeous high resolution, beautiful, beautiful photo. Now, there was a lot of mist there. So, you get that kind of mysteriousness. So you're walking and you can't even see your nose, and then suddenly it clears and the sun is shining down. And then, it's just beautiful. It's very kind of mysterious in a way.
That's
I
wild because
remember
if you had mist, that means you had a lot of moisture in the air, which is not typical. At least here in the U.S., it's not typical to have that much moisture during wintertime. It tends to dry everything out. So, I mean, that's really fascinating.
okay, I hadn't really thought about it, but you often get mist in that area. It's just the way it
Mm,
is. So, as you said, it must be a lot of moisture.
yeah.
But I remember when I was up in the mountains once, and it was a really misty morning, very, very misty. And this is in summer. And I just went for a walk by myself, and I opened this gate and took a few steps. And then suddenly, as I could just see through the mist, there was a cow. I said, okay. And then suddenly there was another one, then another one. Then they all started moving towards me and looking at me. And I was surrounded by about 50 cows to 100
Wow.
cows, and they were all facing me and looking at me. It
Very
was just
curious.
very, very weird experience.
That's funny.
But very special, really, in a way. Very special.
Well, cows are, in a sense, they're like horses. They're very communal, and
Mm,
they are very. How do I describe it? I don't want to make it sound like I'm talking just about humans, but I'll use the word generically. They're very person oriented. They're being oriented. Maybe that's a better way to describe it. They're
mm-hmm.
very much interested in any being that comes within their range of mobility. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're describing makes sense. I mean, I've seen that before, but it's interesting. I don't know why that is, but they're very intensely, quietly curious animals.
Yeah, they seem to be more aware than some other animals that are out there in the world.
Mm.
There seems to be a greater level of awareness. And I know that my wife's father, Opa, they call him, he had two cows, which he milked and all the rest of it, but he had such a close, strong relationship.
Mm.
My wife, often says to me that, Opa loved his cows more than he loved his own kids. But, so it's just like a really, really close relationship.
Well, the cows were the beneficiaries.
Yeah, the cows were very close to him, and I think cows can get very close to humans in a way that a lot of other animals can't, at
Mm.
least beyond dog and cat kind of scenario, the
Right.
domestic animals. I think the cows have got that ability. And hi, Sam. Yes, it was a beautiful traditional holiday.
Hmm.
Happy New Year to you. Um, yeah, so the interesting thing was, because the previous year we weren't able to go because of COVID, because we were in lockdown, which was very frustrating. But what it did is it created a greater appreciation for having the ability to go to a place like that. And,
Right.
when you do it year after year, you kind of lose that sense of it's special anymore. It's just something you do.
Hmm.
But, the thing that was a bit frustrating for me, I have to admit, was coming back and paying double what I did no, the same. Well, what I paid for the flights for the whole family, we have to pay for testing for the whole family. So it's double the amount just in travel costs for the COVID tests when we come back. And that's not done by the government or anything. That is penalized for the individual who's got enough money to go traveling. And now we're going to penalize you with, testing, etc. Yeah, I mean, you can go on holiday and those rules aren't there. And when you're on holiday and you come back and then the rules are slapped on you. So it's not even something you can pretty much plan for, just something that can get slapped onto you at any stage of the game. And then you suddenly have to haul out a huge amount of money, and you could get even worse. The whole family could have had to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks or something, which some people have had to do from certain red zone countries. So, it's very difficult to travel or to think about traveling without, saying, okay, whatever I've paid for my holiday, I'm going to have to keep double aside just to cover maybe some bases when I come back, at least double. And it's a tough thing to have to do because, the planes were half empty, 3/4 empty when we went and about half empty when we came back.
Wow.
Airport's very easy to get in and out and through because a lot of people just aren't traveling,
Mm-hmm.
So the travel industry is just going to be hit left, right, and center.
Oh yeah, they're struggling
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do feel sorry for them because there's a lot of different businesses that are leaning on the travel industry, like accommodation and food and all the rest of it in certain areas and restaurants, etc. So, I just don't know how we're going to move forward because, we've got the new variant and the new variant and the new variant and how many jabs you're prepared to have and all the rest of it. These are kind of questions you have to ask yourself. And as I mentioned to you last time that I spoke to you, a lot of people aren't even aware that they had to change the definition of the word vaccine to cover this thing that they're giving you at the moment, this COVID jab, which is not a vaccine as we used to know. But now that they've modified the wording.
It's a new kind of thing that's never been done before, so they didn't have a word for it.
Yeah. So they've now lubbed that in with vaccine. And
I think they understand that the population as a whole would have a very strong association with the word vaccine, so they figure, we'll call it a vaccine because at least they know it's for blocking a disease from taking over your body. Okay, people can get that, so we'll go with vaccine.
But it's not. The only thing it says on the tin is that it'll reduce the symptoms. It doesn't stop you getting it. It doesn't stop you spreading it. The only thing it does is it will reduce the symptoms. So it's basically the same as a cold or flu jab. Mm-hmm. And not a vaccine per se.
Now, from the point of view of those of us who are conscious creators, of course, the big challenge is what is our response going to be in these situations?
Absolutely.
When we run into things that we don't like, how are we going to respond to it? Because of the response, and that's something I've been facing in my own way, not regarding COVID and vaccines and so forth, but with other stuff lately. It's almost like I've had my own philosophies shoved back in my face. Like, okay, you believe in testing and changing your responses to the situation. Here's a couple situations for you. Go for it. That's what it's felt like lately. And it has been a challenge, but you know what? I still have the choice. The choice has never been taken away from me. I still continue to choose or have the option to choose whatever response I'm going to have. And it's up to me.
Well, I mean, I'm usually skiing and going to restaurants, etc. But I made a very conscious decision that I was just going to enjoy what I could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was it. I was not going to get upset. They said, shall we bring you a doggy bag back, order you a meal and bring it back? I said, no. I'll happily fast during this period, and I'd be happier that way, So it was really interesting. It was a very clear and conscious focus on being happy, even though there was all these, usually we'd go to the swimming baths and swim with the kids and sauna and jacuzzi and all the rest of it. And we weren't able to do that either,
that's almost like sacrilegious. Louis not being able to go to a sauna.
Exactly. But then I know when I come back, I've still got it. But the idea of not being able to roll in the snow after a sauna is quite disappointing. Which you can't do in the UK, by the way.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, in England, shall we say. You could probably do it in Scotland.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
These kind of places aren't really out there, England is still so prudish that these kind of things haven't taken off big time in the UK.
Ah, okay.
But in Austria, everybody is nude and everybody loves that kind of stuff, and they all know how healthy it is, and they live that life very, very much. So they've got some of the biggest and best and the most amazing saunas and jacuzzis and places like that. I'll just give you an example. We went to one in Austria. Now it's a massive warehouse, absolutely huge, and there's a children's section, and there's an all under 18 and then over 18. Everybody over 18 is allowed to go nude and do whatever you want. The under 18 is usually the kids, etc., but you're not allowed to go nude. So the first place we went to in the nude section, and there was four of us, me and my girlfriend at the time, and another couple of friends of ours, Norwegian friends. So we went there, and the first thing you do is you get in a pool where they time you. You're not allowed in it for more than 17 seconds because it's very high in minerals and it gets absorbed through the skin.
Oh,
so they make sure that you aren't able to stay in there for longer than 17 minutes. And they kick you out. And then there's this huge jacuzzi. I mean, it can handle probably 50 people. A round thing with a huge dome on top of it. Very powerful jets. And these jets are really massaging your back and your feet and the bubbles, etc. They're really powerful. And then the next one was like a stream, and it was a flowing stream, and it was meandering. What you do is you get these round things that you float, those long round things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put one under your head and one under your knees. And then you just and then your ears go in the water when you're like that. And then they've got this beautiful sound system underneath playing some very relaxing classics. And you go down the stream and you go round and round in this kind of stream thing. And it's just like, wow, man, that
sounds
so
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you've got the steam rooms. Now, the first steam room was a big orange globe in the middle with water coming out the top and spilling all the way around it perfectly. And you had these rolling seats that were heated. And then you had beautiful music in there. So you just sit there and they've got this beautiful music and this orange ball that is always dripping with water all the way down. And it's just such gorgeous, absolutely amazing. Then the next thing you do is you go into different steam rooms, and they've got the main steam room, which is eucalyptus as usual, with the lights going on and off. It's like starry lights on the roof and the ceiling. And then you've got two on this side, two on that side. So four others. And they only handle 4 people each. So each one is a different flavor, and they change the flavors, the smells every day. And so you've got, citrus and, all different ones in there, and it's just gorgeous. Then you go from there to the sauna area. In the sauna area, you walk on like a gravel path, so something to massage your feet. When they've got palm trees there, they've got this huge plunge pool and a waterfall going into the plunge pool. And then you've got the sauna, and we saw the sauna was open. It's like, oh, what are they doing there? Oh no, the guy says they're busy airing it. So every 2 hours they open all the door to the outside and the inside door, and they let the air clean up. They said, okay, that's cool. And he says, okay, it's ready now. So we go inside, and they take these huge hands of ice and they put them on these the heating element, and they had the strawberry flavor. I only found it was strawberry many years later, but that smell is gorgeous, and it's strawberry. And these hands melt, and the guy comes in there, it all fills up, boys and girls, everybody's naked. And it fills up, and the guy stands there with his towel, and the steam from the hands, he takes his towel and he flicks it to each corner of the room. And then he gets a little clap, everybody claps, and he goes, sits down. And so the steam is, it's just to get that smell and that steam into all the corners of the sauna after they've aired it. So,
got it.
So you go back inside and you have your sauna as per usual. And then you go outside and you've got these huge streams of water, or even the plunge pool's got this, waterfall. So you jump into the plunge pool and then you swim to the waterfall and you get smashed with this freezing cold water coming over your head. And it's just like being out there in the wild, and then you've got 3 different saunas there as well, all different smells, and the one was herb based, which was a bit weird. And you get some that are, lower temperatures and higher. Then you go swimming down a stream and the stream goes outside. So outside, of course, it's snowing and it's huge amount of snow and all the rest of it. So you're going out, still warm water out there. So the steam's everywhere. And they've got this, water cave where you go underneath the waterfall and then there's a cave behind there and you're outside. And then you can just jump onto the side, roll in the snow, roll out again.
Oh, jeez.
Then you've got the organic restaurant, and you go in there completely naked. You sit down and you eat your food.
I was wondering if they're going to bring the fifth sense in there. They had 4 senses going. They had to bring the 5th in at some point.
So, a lot of people don't even know places like this exist. I didn't.
I had no idea.
I keep on thinking of why I became a nudist and all the rest of it. And, when I was in the south of France with a friend of mine, we went down to the beach together and I said, I'm going for a walk. And I walked, if you go north of a lot of beaches in, west part of France, you will find a nudist beach. So you go north of the main beach and you'll find a nudist beach. So I didn't know this, but I just went for a walk and I bumped into this. So, from then onwards, I sort of, you stand there and watch, and then the guy says, no, if you want to stay here, you have to take off your clothes. So I thought, hey, take off my clothes. And then you start realizing how natural it is. And, after a while, you're really saying to yourself, why are people wearing clothes? What have they got to hide? And it's completely turned around your head. Your head is completely spun around after a while. And the fascinating thing is, you get the babies, you get the teenagers, you get the beautiful little girls and the boys, and then you get the middle age of 20s to 30s and the 30s to 40s and 40s to 50s, 50s to 60s, 60s to 70s, 80s to 90s. And you got the whole range. And then you start realizing that this beautiful young girl is going to look like that a little bit later on. That old lady, that old saggy skinned lady. And you start realizing that this is just a cloak that you're carrying for a while, and it's very temporal, and it really gives you that sense of, oh, is that how it all works? And, I remember somebody once said to me, you want to know what, that beautiful girl that you like is going to look like? Just look at her mom.
Yes, that's true. Very true.
And probably same with boys, but, it was, mentioned to me. So you start seeing that this is a whole progressive thing. And another thing that really came to me through the whole experience was the whole generation gap. The generation gap, I think, is based along the problem with society as God is when you're young, you think you're much older than you are. You think you're much wiser and you know things better and all the rest of it. And then the older generation wants to be younger.
This is true.
So what's happening there is people aren't really saying, this is where I am and this is what I'm going to be. And I'm going to appreciate where I am now, instead of wanting something that you're not. And, the whole nudist thing, I think, was one of the best things for me. It builds within you a strong confidence. I can be nude in front of somebody and it doesn't bother me at all. The only reason I'm not is because it tends to bother them a lot.
Well, there are other reasons for me. I don't know about you, but for me, there are a few. Like, for instance, I'm not really crazy about going out in the winter without clothes on. I actually like to stay warm in winter.
Completely agree with you. The only reason I wear shoes in this country, in South Africa, I very rarely wear shoes is because it's cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just cold.
Very practical. When you talked about rolling around in the snow, I said, well, yeah, have fun. Not for me. Not interested.
Yeah, but I mean, you've just come out of the sauna and your body's boiling hot and you want to
I don't
cool
care.
down.
I still am not interested.
Oh, Walt, you need to play with a contrast. It teaches
I play
you.
with all the contrasts I want to. I'm not interested in that one.
No, but it really is good for the detoxing. You know, if you go hot, cold, your whole body is like pink and healthy and you sweat it out the toxins. It's amazing.
Either that or else you're in cardiac arrest, one or the other. There's not a whole lot in between.
Well, it's interesting. I've never seen anybody being arrested.
Nice one. Boom, boom.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's very special, you know. I as well, because I wasn't able to go last year, really was looking forward to it so much more this year. And yeah,
it's interesting
the
how
contrast.
That's been an ongoing theme with the COVID pandemic.
COVID, absolutely, yeah.
You know, the more that the longer that has gone on, and the more that people's behavior patterns have been shifted because of it, appreciation is up all over the place. I don't think a lot of people, particularly those who are in the high range of fear, are even aware of it. But there are some people who are aware of it, and it becomes actually a fun topic of conversation. Like, for instance, I got my hair cut just before Christmas, and my barber is not somebody who normally would be aware of anything regarding law of attraction, conscious creation, positive thinking, anything like that. But he went through some heart attacks and strokes last year, a whole series of them, actually. And he's not an older guy. He's you know, probably, I don't know, mid-40s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to talking, and of course, every time I'm talking to him, I'm always accentuating the positive, to use the old song. And in the process of doing that, I'm sharing philosophies that we talk about here on the show. One of the things that I was pointing out to him was just this, that I said, I prefaced it by saying there are a number of good things that have come out of COVID. He said, oh, really, what were they? Because he's kind of used to me now, first of all, and second of all, he's open to the possibility. So I started listing them, and one of them was the fact that we have much more appreciation. And you could just see his eyes light up. Mm-hmm. The moment that I said that, it resonated, and he jumped right in and totally agreed. Yes, that's definitely happened. Much more appreciation going on. And I'm thinking to myself, how cool is that? Because that's just somebody who I know, but who's not in conscious creator circles. How many others that I don't know about who are having very similar kinds of responses? Now, I can't honestly say most people are having conversations with somebody like you or me where we're actually pointing this stuff out to them, but the awareness is there on some level. It's not like this was
on
news
some
to him.
level.
Yeah. It wasn't like he had never heard this idea or never thought of this idea. It's just that I had encouraged him to bring it to the surface, but he was enthusiastic about it. I'm thinking, wow, if there's this much appreciation, or even just a fraction of this appreciation going on planet-wide, oh, we are in line for some amazing stuff to come along in the next year or two. Just amazing stuff. I don't even know what it is, but it's going to be amazing.
You know, Walt, I was chatting to this Austrian 21-year-old girl, and she was having a lot of problems with people calling her tall, and her being tall because she's very tall. She's taller than me.
I know the feeling.
And I was trying to encourage her to be proud of it. And it was really an obstacle. And she was like,
that too, because I've been in that place. I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly how she feels.
I mean, I know how, when I was at the airport and I was watching this guy who was like 2.5 meters tall, he was massive. I mean, I don't think I've seen somebody that big many times in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, how does he fit in the plane? How does he sit down to do anything?
You have identified some of the most important issues that we who are of the tall breed deal with. You're absolutely right.
But on the other hand, being proud of it and confident about it and having Teflon coat about any negative
Mm,
comments about it will make your life so much easier.
it's true.
So much easier.
And one thing that
And
I found over time is that if the way that I kind of put on that Teflon coat was through another form of appreciation, but it wasn't appreciation that I was intending. I just kind of fell into it. The kind of
mm,
appreciation I'm talking about is where people, it, I mean, you are treated. I understand what it's like for somebody like a very attractive woman to feel like she's being treated like an object. I understand what that feels like because when you are treated for being tall, you're also getting the same kind of treatment. But by the same token, it's almost always done positively. Very rarely do you get some really negative teasing type stuff.
mm.
Most of the time, it's appreciated.
But
Wow, you're
even if
so
it's done
tall.
positively, it's taken negatively.
It very often is, yes.
Many
But
often, yeah.
but my point is, what happens over time is that the more that you get that, particularly in the form of can you help me? I need to get that off the shelf. You're in a supermarket, you're in a store, you're someplace, where
Mm,
something is up high and they need help with something, or just in a place where the little kids. I love little kids because they don't feel like they have to hide anything. They just let it go. Like, wow,
mm,
mommy,
mm,
he's tall. Stuff like that. You can't really avoid that, and after a while, you just smile at it
mm,
because you're so used to it. It happens so often, and there's clearly no malice in any of it.
mm,
And somewhere along the line, it just kind of clicks. Like I can be okay with this.
mm,
It just kind of happens. You kind of just fall into it. I'm sure. I mean, I understand where she's at 21. I was not at that place yet, but I promise you, even without what you said and what you said to her, I'm sure it's going to help. But even without that, within the next 3 or 4 years, she's going to reach that same point. It's going to happen to her too. And when
mm.
she won't even know what happened. She'll have to look back on it. And then she'll recognize, there was a time when I was all very sensitive about my height. And I
Mm.
just don't seem to have that sensitivity anymore.
I was saying to her, why would I give you the power to make me feel horrible or unhappy?
That's an interesting question.
Which is the same to anybody else who's saying you're tall or not tall or whatever. Why would you give them the power to make you feel unhappy? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something a lot of people aren't taught to look at or to focus on or to understand or to
Well,
appreciate
that
that,
part actually
that
took me a
often.
number of years to learn. That took me a lot more
Mm,
than my 20s to learn that one. I probably till I was around 50 because I was among I don't know what percentage of the population, but some chunk of the population that did not believe I could decide what my response was going to be, what my emotional feeling was going to be in any given situation. I always thought the emotional feeling had to be, and I mentioned this a lot lately, I always thought the emotional feeling had to be tied in some way to what was intended in situation X, whatever situation X is. So if situation X called for tears, then I had to feel tears. If situation X called for laughter, I had to feel laughter. If situation X called for anger, then I had to feel anger. Like I never had a choice, I thought. And I think there are a number of people who go through life believing that, partly because we're sort of indirectly taught it, and partly because we never really get taught you get to choose. I mean,
mm,
I can't ever remember a single teacher of any kind, either a school teacher or a parent or an adult figure who I respected or anybody during all the time I was growing up, during my 20s, my 30s. I can't remember anyone saying you get to choose what your response is.
mm.
Maybe somebody did, but I didn't hear it. I can promise you that. It never entered the conscious mind. Not once. But boy, is that just a powerful thing to learn.
It is. It's amazing. The way I look at it now is there's only two ways a human can be hurt. You want to try and stab at the way I see it? What are the two ways
Well, I think
anybody
you
can be
just
hurt?
listed one. Taking a
Yeah.
stab at somebody, that'll do it.
So that is, what would you call that?
Physical, yeah.
Physical pain. And what's
Yes.
the other pain that you can have that often people have got?
How do you describe it? I mean, you could kind of group it as like emotional pain, but
Yeah.
it's,
Okay. Let's say
yeah.
psychological.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So there's only two types of pain any human can experience. One is physical and one psychological.
Well, some people also divide those up into pieces. Like they'll differentiate between mental and emotional And so you're kind of grouping them all in psychological, but some
Yeah.
people say, well, they're separate,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I always like building things down to the biggest thing that they can be collectively added to. So if we're looking at psychological pain is based on you thinking about what you don't want. Yes.
Mm. Which we're all
That's
good
it.
at, by the way.
But how simple is that? When people talk about psychological pain, they go into so many diverse ideas and concepts and things, but they don't say, oh, it's just me thinking about what I don't want.
Oh, it's never taught that clearly. I mean, Abraham's the first one that I know of who ever taught that clearly. Nobody else ever teaches that. Nobody else even says it that way.
Yeah. So you start realizing that, oh, if I'm thinking about what I don't want, that helps me understand better what I do want, doesn't it? When you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. And then I just turn that around. So there's only two types of pain, and one you can always turn around.
Yes.
And one is self-inflicted. The other one may be self-inflicted. You may be stabbing yourself with a knife.
And I'm not ready to throw in the towel on the other one either, because I have not been able to sustain it, but for short periods of time, I have been able to get rid of the physical pain as well.
Oh, you just remove the knife and don't stab yourself anymore.
Well, partly that, but also, that's basically what, from the current modern science perspective, that's what the placebo effect is. The placebo effect, in their view, is just.
I get what you're saying.
And it's cool that we can do that. I mean, I think placebo is a whole lot more, but that's another topic. But the fact that we can do that is cool. I think we have more to learn about how to do it more consistently, but basically it means there is no form of pain that we cannot control.
But when you break it down to that level of simplicity, let's say this girl who's got a problem with the height challenge, it really just is a thought of what you don't want.
Oh, yeah.
It really can be broken down to that level of simplicity, and that's it. Once you become aware of that, it becomes clear to you. You can start saying, okay, wouldn't it be nice if it didn't bother me that much anymore? Wouldn't it be nice if I was confident about it? Wouldn't it be nice if I wore my Teflon coat and it just bounced off me? Wouldn't it be nice? And then after a while, of course, you are so much not focused on it. It doesn't even, the universal law of attraction can't bring it into your life.
Well, that's just it. Exactly. And
it just doesn't even exist anymore. Completely, absolutely, utterly vanishes.
And you just described a great way to get there. There are other ways to get there. I mean, you probably described the most direct way to get there, the quickest way to get there. But there are other ways as well. And what they all add up to is taking your mind off of it. So often we just allow ourselves to be controlled, for the lack of a better word, be controlled by everybody else seemingly focusing our attention on our height in this case. Well, the only reason that we experience that is because, we keep focusing on it, like you say. But nevertheless, it feels like other people are making us do it. Other people are imposing it on us. Other people are, my height is always an issue. It always comes into it. And even if somebody isn't saying something, I experience it as an issue because it just shows up in like social situations. This is one of my big things. If I'm in a social situation, in a party atmosphere where everybody is standing, holding drinks or whatever, I can never hear the conversation because all the heads are like, a foot lower. And with all the background noise, I can't hear what they're saying. It's just not possible. Anyone who's tall knows exactly what I'm talking about. Anyone who's short probably knows what I'm talking about too, because it's the same issue, just from a different angle. But the fact is, you become so oriented toward this stuff that you just start noticing it everywhere. So when you finally find a way to just not notice it anymore, all of a sudden it has no power over you.
And it's amazing because recently I felt a little bit not so happy about a situation. And immediately I started thinking, that's just a thought. It's just a thought. What don't I like? Oh, I don't like that. All right. If I don't like that, what would be the opposite of it? And then I spent a little bit of time focusing on that, and bang, I was out of it. And, it's very conscious now, extremely conscious. If I'm feeling that negative emotion, immediately I'm looking for what's the statement? What do I don't like? What do I not like? And then when you get clarity on the wording of what you don't like, you can immediately say, okay, I don't like, the way I treated somebody. Then you say, wouldn't it be nice if I treated them this way? And then focus on that. Think about that. Think about how you can do it better next time. And then bang, it's gone. It's just vanished. And, it's so powerful now, once you get there.
Well, it does take some time. I mean, it's not something that you're going to get instantly. It takes time. You have to practice it. You have to keep at it until it becomes habitual. And as a result, there are going to be times. I experienced it over the weekend. I had a time where I was feeling pretty pessimistic about some of my immediate future plans, to the point where I figured they weren't even going to happen. And I actually was in that place of feeling like I couldn't climb out of it, which I had been in for quite some time. Now, of course, I did remember, oh, yeah, I don't have to stay there. So I started using some of the tools that I know and was able to emerge and get out of it. But the experience is a great reminder that even when we learn to apply these teachings and when we learn to practice them on a more regular basis, there are going to be times where we slip. And when we slip, it's okay. And not only is it okay, it's one more opportunity to practice once again, being mindful, bringing our attention back to where we want it to be, focusing on the stuff that we love. You know what actually helped me get out of it this time? It's interesting. I was thinking about the tools that I used. I used some of the tire tools. They were very helpful. But ultimately, what changed the whole thing for me, what changed the whole dynamic, was realizing that I wanted to trade in a gift that I got for Christmas. And that was completely unexpected. My brother is a software engineer for NASA. Mm-hmm. He actually works for a contractor that works for NASA. And he is very interested in anything technological. And he decided this year, kind of out of the blue, he was going to give me one of these virtual 3D gaming consoles. The one was called it's called the Oculus. I think it's the Facebook.
Yeah, the Oculus. Yeah. If you don't want it, you can send it my way.
Sorry, it's already gone. But what ended up happening was I realized I had this thing, and it had some value to it, but I really didn't want it. I knew I wasn't going to use it. And I don't even remember how I got onto it, but somewhere along the line, I got to thinking about piano keyboards, electronic piano keyboards. And I used to play piano when I was a kid. And for years, I've been saying to myself, I'd really like to get a piano, but we haven't had a place to live where we can put a grand piano in, and I wanted a grand piano. Well, we still don't have a place where we can put a grand piano. Mm-hmm. But the electronic keyboards have gotten to the point where, they don't really sound like grand pianos, but they're fairly close.
They're close. Yeah, they're really close.
And I'm thinking, well, why not just get one of the keyboards? And so all of a sudden I started getting excited. I started doing some research online. I didn't have a lot of money to spend. I was looking at kind of the low to medium end keyboards, but I was listening to some of them on YouTube and so forth. They sound pretty good. So, I ended up basically trading in the Oculus for a keyboard. And
cool.
The keyboard's on order. It's going to be here in about a week, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
That alone. That was the big, I went through my other tools to climb out of my funk that I was in, but that one leapfrogged me out because what I did?
But you could have put both of them together. You can have the virtual reality keyboard. You're missing out here, Walt. There's another level you can go to.
Louis, I learned years ago how to play without looking at the keys. I don't need to have a blinder in front of me in order to do that.
It's the virtual reality. It's the concert house that you're in with the audience and everything that it can create for you. It's really incredible. It takes you to another level altogether. I must have been very, very impressed.
I don't know if you saw that. Brenda's got a question in the queue here for you. She says she wants to know how tall you are.
I can never remember. I have slightly above average, I'd say. Yeah. Oof,
I
what's
don't even
that?
know what is the average in the UK. Here in the US, it's about 6 feet, which is about, you know, one point, what's that, 1.8 feet or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but 1.9.
I've always been just, with all the class photos and all, it's slightly taller than everybody else, but, not everybody, but, the average.
Kevin's right.
You
You can
can
play
play
piano in your city whenever and wherever you want. They play all over the
exactly.
place.
There's a lot of
Buskers
people
as
who,
far as the eye can see.
VR is really starting to take off now for the first time after it's been out there for many, many years. It's
Mm.
now starting to break ground in a bigger way than it ever has been before. And I can see it taking off, more and more and more. The idea of having to buy those Oculus is, you really have to bite your tongue, because they're expensive. They really are.
Oh yeah.
So
But then again, they got me a keyboard, so hey, I'm not complaining.
yeah,
Right? You know? These things
but
are
you,
relative.
but you get the VR that you can put your mobile phone into, and they only cost 30, 40 quid, 50 quid
Hmm.
maybe for a better
Hmm.
quality one. Just slot your phone into it and then you
Hmm.
move around with that. And that's what I've been using for years now. And I
Hmm.
love it. I mean, you can now watch anything on YouTube in VR. So you could watch what our show now on YouTube. You can press a button and you'll be able to watch it with the VR headset.
There probably are people who are watching LOA today on
Yeah.
YouTube with the VR headset. I mean, that's just
No, I
bound
don't
to
think
be.
so. That'll be rare. That'll
Hey,
be
give our
rare.
credit, give our audience credit. It keeps growing every day. You know, we're good.
If there's anybody, I'd really like to know. I've actually watched one of our shows on VR, but you rarely, when you got VR, you want 380
Yeah,
degree at
it wouldn't
least.
quite be the same thing, right?
Yeah, and you want some visual stimuli. Just looking at my face, I can't imagine it does much. Um,
Actually, there's a question you can answer for me because I've wondered. I mean, I didn't wonder it enough to actually try out the gear that my brother gave me before I traded it in. But I've wondered because I have only straight ahead vision in one eye, would that interfere with the VR effect because I'm not getting the depth perception?
to be honest, I don't know.
Okay,
I think,
fair.
the different kind of eye challenges, if depth perception is an issue, when you walk outside, when you walk around your house, there isn't really a depth perception. You don't bump into things or knock into things or anything. So, and you
The
still see the
depth
table.
issues really happen with like immediate things, like somebody hands you something and you underreach or you overreach for it because you can't tell exactly where the hand is, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I had that problem when I did table tennis as a kid with glasses. I was good. I was pretty reasonable at university. And then my dad paid for me to get contact lenses and I just smashed everybody. And I started to realize the glasses and the distance from your eye do create a depth
Oh,
perception
eyesight
issue.
makes a huge difference. Oh yes.
Huge.
Yeah,
So
it's no coincidence that, for instance, in the American sport baseball, the best hitters have the best eyesight, like
mhm.
20/10 vision. They have outstanding vision and they can just see everything about that ball that they're trying to hit. So yeah.
But Kevin, I completely agree with you. Going with a VR headset through the Grand Canyon is just a treat beyond treats. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
And you don't have to put up with
Um,
the cold temperatures of being there if you don't want to. So that's pretty cool.
exactly. um, there's the ability these days of being able to bring the world into your room is getting bigger and bigger and better and better. Um, you can't substitute what I experienced in the last 2 weeks in the Austrian Alps with a VR headset. It's just impossible. But visually you can get to experience it in a way you would never before on this planet to being able
Sure.
to really get
Because that's what
involved.
you're doing. You're feeding one sense. I mean, the Austrian experience was feeding five senses, so that's why it really can't compete.
Yeah.
But that one sense that VR is feeding is pretty good. I mean, they've turned that into an art form. And I think it's only a matter of time before they start bringing the other senses in. I mean, well, they already have sound in. Audio is already part of it.
Yeah.
But at some point you're going to have smell-o-vision. You're going to have tactile stuff going on. And that's when VR is going to be
watching
at that point.
With VR, Walt, an elephant scene. So you literally got this huge herd of elephant and walking right up to the camera. They're right there. They're walking past you. You can almost smell them, hear them, taste them, touch them. It's really a well done experience. I mean, really well done. I mean, I've ridden on elephants before. I've fed them with my hand, etc. So, I already know what it feels like in real life, but, the VR headset, I was really impressed with one specific elephant clip that I saw once upon a time. And it left a stark impression of, you literally feel you could touch them as they walk past. You literally put your hand out, and, I love it when I give the kids it, they're wandering around, bumping into things, and they're like so excited, and they're getting shocked. Or the roller coaster rides, which you can do. It's really, you get vertigo. Everybody does get vertigo with those roller coaster rides.
I'm sure,
without exception. You're not moving. You're physical. It's only the visual idea that you are moving that completely gives you, and it gives you that pit in your stomach, and you're like, you can really feel it. It's really interesting.
I disagree with Elon Musk. Kevin quoted Elon Musk. He said, in the next 10 years, Musk said, you won't be able to tell the difference between reality and VR. And I disagree with that. I don't think that can be done in 10 years. I think we will eventually reach the point where you feel like you're in the Matrix, where it all just feels so real. But 10 years, I think it's a little bit advanced.
10 years, I think it's a bit short too. Yeah. I mean, even though it's speeding up and speeding up and speeding up,
it is.
I can't see it getting there that fast.
Not really, no. Because basically what you have to do is you have to be able to fool all five senses plus the sixth sense. That's going to be tough. Yeah. That's going to be really tough.
Really, really tough.
Yeah.
And the level of clarity you're going to need, and the 360-degree aspect, plus, this VR headset you got at the moment with your phone in it. My phone is heavy. And the VR headset is not that light. And you need to remove all of that. That must not be a factor.
That will eventually happen. They'll get to the point where that does happen. Yeah. Interesting, too, how it also will feed fears for some people, too. I think probably, I don't know what the current state of the technology is. I don't really follow it. But I know at one point they were talking about stuff that embeds into your head and interacts with your brain directly. And a lot of people freak out over that possibility. So it's interesting how fear has already entered into the picture and probably will continue to do so over time. Once again, reintroducing the idea that we get to choose what our response is going to be to any given perspective. But the cool side of what you were just describing, I think, is it does give you different perspectives. That is, if I was ever going to be interested in VR, that would be it. Experiencing different perspectives that you get from whatever the filmmaker is who put together the experience that you're looking at, or game maker, or whatever it might be. That you are experiencing perspectives that you did not have before. Because among other things, what that really just drills right down deep inside of you is you are not limited to the one perspective you thought you were.
You know what I really enjoyed about The Matrix? Is they took cinematography to another level.
They did, yeah.
That movie, when it came out at the time, those flying through the air and the movement, and it was done so sublimely well that you really I felt very distinctly at the time that this was a leap forward in cinematography in movies. I really felt it very distinctly. And of course, many people have tried to copy aspects of The Matrix and use aspects of it. Very similar. And to great effect. And, now it's so normal. I was looking at The Matrix the other day. It's like, it's not as great as I remember it, but it's always the contrast aspect, before I hadn't had that level of cinematography, and now it's fairly commonplace. So,
I don't even know if
yeah.
it's out yet, but have you seen The Matrix Resurrection yet?
Is it a brand new movie? Oh yeah,
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 brand
yeah,
new.
yeah. It
Yeah,
is. Yes, yes. No,
that's the new
I've
one.
heard about it, but I haven't seen it. No.
I don't even know if it's out yet. It may not be. But I thought
Okay.
it was going to be out around the holidays, and we're past the holidays, so I figured, well, there's a good chance.
Is it going to have Keanu Reeves in it?
Yeah, I believe he's in it. I don't understand why Lawrence Fish is not in it. I don't get that one at all. But hey, they have their reasons, I guess. But most of the cast, as I understand it, is in it. And I guess they've taken advantage of how long ago the movie was done, so that the next story is thrust a number of years into the future to make sense out of the fact that all the characters are older, which seems kind of odd to me, because if you have a Matrix, I mean, you can make everybody whatever age you want to. So I don't know what that limitation is all about, but that's just, I don't know what they're going to do with that one. I'm curious to see the movie. Let's just put it at that. I'm very curious to see the movie when it comes my way.
You know, I've always appreciated all the Matrix, but again, the first one was groundbreaking from many respects. It kind of talks about the idea that there's something beyond the physical.
Yep.
And there was a whole spiritual dimension to it. It was kind of talking about soul versus the physical body. And that whole dimensional gap. And I know a lot of people watched that movie and didn't understand.
Oh, sure. Well, there's a lot to take in that first time that you see that movie. There's a lot to take in.
There's a lot. And, you know, there's that
you
little...
have to process
it. There's that little scene where he gets plugged in, and he goes into this VR world, and, he's getting explained what's actually going on. And if you don't watch that little section a few times to really understand what they're saying, because that explains the entire movie. There's like 5 minutes of explaining the entire movie. But if you don't get those 5 minutes, then you've kind of lost it. But it's great.
That's true. Kevin's made a recommendation in the chat. He says, watch Don't Look Up on Netflix. Are you familiar with that one? I'm not.
I've seen it, and I think it's new, but I haven't been drawn to watch it.
I'll make a note of it. Take a look at it at some point. Especially if it has Matrix qualities, that gives it, at least a reason to take a look at it.
Yes, in the top 10, it says, bad news. A huge freaking comment is on collision course with Earth. It's really bad news. No one cares. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay.
Sounds interesting.
All right. Well, that's an interesting.
If it's recommended, I'll watch.
If it's recommended.
Number one in Austria today. Okay, I'm not in Austria anymore. I'm back home in the UK.
Well, that's right. You can still be influenced by what's going on in Austria. There's no rule against that. It's fine.
No, I just thought that if I'd logged in with Netflix in this country, it would have picked up the idea that I was in this country, because it knows what the IP is, of course, what country it is. But it still hasn't updated it, so just confused.
Well, I want to finish up just by reminding people that our friend Anne-Marie is under the weather, dealing with COVID. So please send your highest vibration messages to help her heal quickly. I know she's not feeling well, but she's well enough to be surfing around on social media. So she's not in really bad shape, which is good. And hopefully with a little help from the rest of us, she can just climb right out of it and get back to the world of the healthy living once again. But in the meantime, this has been fun. This has been an interesting conversation, Louis. I'm glad we kind of embarked on. I'm glad you kind of took us down this road with your stories about the nudists, particularly in Austria, who like to climb out of saunas and roll around in the snow. But that part was a little strange, but that's okay.
It's really not strange at all.
But anyway, we'll see you next week. Thank you guys in the live stream for all the comments, and thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.